This story is for those who've been knocked down by life, but never stopped believing in the good, for the souls who carry light, even in the darkest places, and for the silent heroes among us who show kindness not because the world is kind, but because they choose to be. It was the kind of Tuesday that passed like background noise. A gray haze smudging the city skyline, filled with hurried footsteps, honking horns, and faces too tired to smile. In the heart of downtown Chicago, among the rows of weary office buildings and bus stops overflowing with indifferent commuters, a man named Elijah Monroe quietly walked the same block he'd traveled every morning for the past 9 years. He wore a pressed navy suit that had faded just enough to say he cared, but didn't have the money for more. His leather shoes clicked over the sidewalk with a rhythm that mirrored the quiet resignation in his heart. Elijah worked at a mid-tier legal firm where he was just another paper pusher among dozens. His coworkers called him reliable. His bosses called him decent, and he called himself invisible. But no one knew what Elijah carried behind that steady gaze and polite nods. No one knew that once he had been a dreamer. Years ago, Elijah had wanted to be a writer. He used to scribble poetry on napkins during lunch breaks and believed words could change the world. But time, debt, and life had a way of sanding down his edges until all that remained was survival. He had become what the world expected him to be: efficient, responsible, quiet. That morning, as he waited in line at the coffee cart near Jefferson and 8th, Elijah noticed something barely. A girl no older than 9 or 10, standing barefoot by the trash bin. Her coat was too big, sleeves dangling past her hands, and her cheeks were flushed from the cold. She wasn't begging. She was just standing, quietly, looking at everyone like she didn't want anything, just maybe to be seen. People passed her like she was part of the sidewalk, a fixture of the urban decay. Everyone pretended not to notice. When it was Elijah's turn to order, he hesitated. His fingers hovered over his wallet. He thought about the bills sitting on his desk. Rent due Friday. Credit card nearing its limit. He thought about the time he helped someone 3 months ago, a man on the train, and got scammed out of $20. That hesitation, that brief war between logic and heart, was enough to almost turn him away. But something stopped him. He didn't know what it was. Maybe the tired look in the girl's eyes, or maybe it was the ghost of the poet still buried inside him. Either way, Elijah ordered 2 coffees and added a warm cheese croissant. Then, without saying much, he walked up to the girl and knelt down to eye level and held out the bag. "It's cold," he said. "This might help." The girl didn't speak. She just nodded, took the bag with small hands, and whispered the softest, "Thank you," he'd ever heard. That was it. No tears. No dramatic moment. Just quiet gratitude. Elijah walked away not expecting anything more. But something inside him shifted. He didn't know it then, but that one small act was about to set off a ripple he couldn't have imagined. That same afternoon, Elijah's routine changed. When he returned to the office, he was told he'd been reassigned to a pro bono case, one that no one else wanted. The client was a homeless veteran named James Holloway, who had been charged with theft for taking expired bread from a dumpster behind a bakery. The firm had taken the case as a PR stunt, but nobody really cared. Elijah was expected to go through the motions and close it quietly. But Elijah remembered the girl. He remembered what it felt like to be seen when no one else saw her. So he decided, against logic, again, to take the case seriously. He spent nights researching James's military record, discovering he had once saved an entire unit during a deployment in Fallujah. He found witnesses, visited shelters, and pulled out dusty books of law to find precedents others had forgotten. Slowly, piece by piece, he built not just a defense, but a story of dignity, humanity, and forgotten heroes. 3 weeks later, the case went to trial, and Elijah, usually soft-spoken background filler in a courtroom, stood with a passion that stunned everyone. He spoke like he was writing poetry again, weaving James's humanity into the eyes of the jury. When the verdict came back not guilty, James cried in his arms. It was the first time in years Elijah felt truly alive. That victory caught the eye of a journalist sitting in the back row. She wrote a piece called "The Quiet Kindness of Elijah Monroe." It went viral in days. Suddenly, Elijah wasn't invisible. His inbox filled with thank you notes, offers to speak, and even a small publisher asking if he'd ever considered writing a book. But Elijah didn't want fame. What he wanted was more kindness, more moments like that one outside the coffee cart. He began doing something strange. Every Friday, he'd take 1 hour off, no phone, no emails, just 1 hour to find someone, anyone who needed something small, a bus pass, a sandwich, a kind word. He called it Superpower Hour. At first, it was just for himself, a way to stay human. But when his coworkers found out, some of them started joining him, then more. Soon, a whole group of lawyers were taking time each week to help shelters, buy school supplies for kids, even sit and listen to the elderly in nursing homes. The firm, once cold and corporate, started changing. One quiet man had unknowingly become a leader, all because of kindness. One evening, months later, Elijah received a letter in the mail, no return address. Inside, a child's handwriting read, "Thank you for seeing me that day near the coffee cart. My name is Lila. My mom was sick, and we didn't have food. That croissant helped us more than you know. My mom got better. I'm in school now. I want to help people like you do. I want to be kind too. Because kindness is your superpower. And now, it's mine too." And Elijah sat for a long time after reading that, longer than he had in years. He looked out at the city from his small apartment window, tears lining his tired eyes. Not from sadness, but from a quiet kind of joy. The kind that grows from meaning, from purpose. The kind that only comes from giving. He thought about Leela, about James, about the dozens of others who were now part of his story, and whose stories had become part of his. And he smiled, because for the first time, he truly understood kindness is my superpower. What? If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still exists. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more powerful, real life stories that can change the world, one heart at a time. Kindness is free, but its impact, priceless. The night after reading Lila's letter, Elijah couldn't sleep. The city lights spilled softly across his living room walls, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone in his silence. That little girl, Lila, had unknowingly reignited something sacred inside him. She wasn't just a reminder of a moment of kindness. She was proof that his smallest action had created a chain far beyond what he could see. That night, Elijah picked up his old leather-bound journal, the one he hadn't touched in years. and began to write again. Not for the world, not for publication, but to remember. He scribbled everything. His thoughts, the weight he'd carried for so long, the fear of insignificance, the shame of dreams abandoned. And then he wrote the words, "Kindness didn't just save someone else, it saved me." The next day, Elijah walked into his office with a different posture. Not proud, not arrogant, but grounded. Like a man who had found his reason for being. And the world noticed. The managing partner of the firm, a no-nonsense woman named Meredith Langford, called him into her office. Elijah expected a reprimand for his recent the books, Acts of Compassion. Instead, she shocked him. "I read that article," she said, tapping a printed copy of The Quiet Kindness of Elijah Monroe. "And I've been watching you. You've changed this place." Elijah opened his mouth, unsure how to respond. She smiled, a rare gesture from someone known for her iron demeanor. "I've been here 25 years, Elijah. I've seen ambition, brilliance, ruthlessness, but I've rarely seen heart. I want to offer you something." She slid a folder across the desk. "I want you to start a new division, the Compassion Unit, a department dedicated to pro bono work, real community impact, and I want you to lead it." Elijah stared at the folder like it might disappear. He'd never been offered a promotion before, not one that mattered. He picked it up slowly. "You really believe in this?" "I believe in you," she replied. "And I believe the world needs lawyers who remember why justice matters, not just money." That week, Elijah became director of the Compassion Unit. His first initiative was simple: visit high schools in underprivileged neighborhoods and teach kids that the law wasn't just for the rich, that it could be their shield, their voice, their path forward. He called the program Justice Starts with Kindness. And at the first school he visited, something happened he didn't expect. A girl in the front row raised her hand. Her hair was tied back, eyes steady but soft. "Elijah Monroe?" she asked. He smiled. "That's me." She opened a notebook covered in stickers and scribbles. "You gave me a croissant once when I was standing outside a coffee cart." Elijah froze. "Lila." She nodded. The room fell silent. He walked to her slowly, eyes filled with disbelief and warmth. She stood and hugged him without a word. Every student in the room, every teacher, every observer watched a real life story come full circle in front of them. The man who gave kindness meeting the girl it changed. From that moment on, Lila became part of the movement. She spoke at events, volunteered at shelters, and inspired others just by being her authentic self. She didn't preach. She lived her message. And that was enough. Months passed. The Compassion Unit grew. Elijah trained dozens of young lawyers to lead with humanity. His Friday Superpower arse turned into a full-scale weekly citywide initiative. Police departments, nurses, teachers, construction workers, all began participating. Every Friday at 3 p.m., Chicago lit up with anonymous acts of kindness. Some called it cheesy, others revolutionary. And then the unthinkable